Yachties and yachties! Welcome back to another video where we are gonna show you the strategies for Scythe. As we said in the first video, our second video here is gonna focus more on the faction strategies, brought to you by the one and only genius Sani Fakhouri.
Not a genius.
You are a genius.
I just like this game a lot.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
So yeah, as we had said, we were going to be focusing on the different factions in the game, and we're taking this from a beginner's approach. The idea is, maybe you've seen our first video, get a general idea of good strategies that work, but you've been dealt a particular faction, you're like, what now?
So let's start with first things first. We're gonna be talking in this video about three factions, which are the Rusviet.
The Rusviet, the red Soviet faction
Yes.
over here, covered by the player board is the Nordic kingdoms, which
The
is
blue.
by the top.
Yeah.
And then finally
Yeah,
we'll talk about the Polanians over
Okay.
on the east side of the west side of the board.
So what are the natural strengths of each of these factions?
Yeah, that's going to be what we're going to be talking about today as we focus on each one. Additionally, we'll be focusing on looking at their starting position, right? Because that's a really big indicator of what they're going to be naturally gravitating towards. If you guys remember the first video, I talked about how the key to winning many games is stars. Yes, there's money as well, but also it's about taking advantage of making resources to take bottom actions. And so a big thing is what resources are naturally available to each of these factions without having to leave their starting little tiny triplet island over here.
Okay.
So that's going to be the big focus. We'll also talk about mech abilities. That's a really big part. And of course the
Which mechs to get out first?
Yeah, for sure. And also the faction abilities of
So let's start with the Russians, the Rusviet. Sunny.
So have you actually had a chance to play these guys?
I have not actually. I've played this game a few times, but I've never landed on the Russians, to be honest.
Which factions have you played so far?
I've played the Japs with the expansion.
Okay.
I've played the other expansion faction. I think the Scots or the Irish, are they?
The black faction or these guys. The
These
Gauls.
guys, the Gauls,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
yes.
So you've only been playing expansion characters.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I can see why this has been quite hard because they say that these are some of the hardest factions to play.
Yeah, I've actually also played with the whatchamacallit, the other ones, the
Nords?
not the Nords.
The
chick one.
Yeah,
The one with the chick.
the Crimean Khanate.
The Crimean Khanate,
Which we'll
yes.
get to in the next video. But just to give you an idea of what I've played before, I think I have most of my games under with the Rusviet.
Really?
So I'm pretty familiar with how they work. Only one with the Nordic, and at least one with the other factions. I think my second most common is the.
I think I've played Nordics once, maybe.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
So the reason why I asked is because familiarity is the best way to get attuned to a faction, right? So for me, I feel like starting the Rusviet Union is great because I'm like, oh yeah, you can do this, you can do this, actually, if you guys didn't know, and when it comes to pairings of boards, the Stonemeyer Games have decreed that there is a particular pairing which is not allowed anymore, which is the Rusviet Union with the, I think it's called the Industrial Board, where it's just far too efficient and they can actually win the game in 14 rounds. Now, I won't show you that because obviously it's banned, but I will want to get you into the idea of how the Rusviet faction works.
Okay.
So let's start with these guys.
That's right.
So what does the Rusviet faction, what is their advantage? Well, they can do the same action twice, right? As opposed to other factions which have to go, back and forth. These guys can just hammer out one single thing until, they want to do something else. And that's quite powerful because, A, if you're a brand new player, you don't have to worry about, oh man, I just did this, if only I could do it again. Well, you can, that's great. But second of all, there are a couple of strategies that focus on getting your guys into one area, producing the heck out of that area, and again, collecting the resources, and then, taking advantage of the bottom action through the resources you made through the top action. So, key point number one. As the Rusviet Union, you always want to focus on that production column and see what is the bottom action associated with that, because that's something you want to take advantage of. Case in point, for this particular board here, the agriculture board, their bottom action below production is build. So they're going to try to focus a little bit more on building, and it happens to make some coins in this particular case. Great. Although, we'll see in a bit that wood is not really something that's present on their starting island, but later on, as a mid-game strategy, once you get out of your starting island, that could be a really good thing to do. But let's focus on early game strategies. How does Rusviet work? Rusviet is a incredible machine because they start off with, I think, 3 of the most powerful resources in the game. More villagers, excellent.
Yeah.
Metal to make mechs,
and oil.
And then oil to upgrade. Okay, maybe not the most strongest. I think it's kind of between food and oil. But they have easy access to them. And even better is the fact that they start with a dude on a town,
village,
on a village, which is able to produce more meeples from the get-go.
Make babies.
Make babies. So honestly, a great first turn for the Rusviet Union could just be produce, and to get those extra meeples out and the metal going to get a mech going. And if you remember from my last video, a big part of this game is transportation and moving your guys around. So let me just sort of demonstrate how this would look. So we can see, actually this is a really great board agriculture because you can see that below production we have making buildings, okay, not fantastic, but below trade you have metal. So as the Rusviet Union, in this particular setup, a great 2-turn start.
Your first one would be produce?
Produce, yeah. So you just go ahead and do produce. That would make a single worker and a single steel over here.
There you go.
And that's 1. And your second turn will be to do produce again.
Okay.
And check it out. You get to that optimal sweet number of 5 workers, which we've mentioned before is like the best amount before you start paying too much for further produce actions. Remember, the 6th worker you have to pay popularity, which is not great. And you get another metal over here.
Oh.
And then with this particular board setup, you can jump into trade to grab the last 2 metal to get your first mech out. Okay? And with that mech, so you cash in, you get the metal, you cash in the metal, you get a mech of your choice. I recommend the +1 speed, but I'll show you why. You can put it next to where the workers are, and then use that mech to bring the workers.
Yeah, to carry the workers somewhere else.
To other locations, like to pick up more metal or more oil. This is usually a good start for the Rusviet Union. Scrounging up a bit of metal, getting up to 5 workers, and then deploying the mech in a position so that they can pick up all the workers and move them along. And so for my first, so if you're playing this particular, I'm sure other boards will be different, but my recommendation is the first mech you want to get out, because you're planning to get more mechs out, is the +1 speed. Why is that? Because when at some point you take a move action, you will want to A, move your mech to carry the guys between the oil and the steel, and B, in one single move your hero to the first encounter point.
Yeah.
So no need to space your turns out with movements. That is the power of Rusviet efficiency, just getting off to a great start. Now I know people say, +1 speed, but how do you get off the starting on? That's okay. The whole idea is by moving your workers into places where...
so the next time you'll produce, you'll get the 4 steel out in one go.
That's right.
You can then go back to your trade action and deploy another mech and get your engine going.
For this particular board. Now, of course, there will be other boards as well. Like here, you have a case where your mech building is Scythe to bolster, which is not a fantastic action. I consider it to be one of the weakest actions in the beginning of the game because you want to produce, you want to trade, you want to maybe move, but bolstering is like a bit later on. So,
I mean, you probably would have to bolster because you are paying military power.
Yeah, and the thing with the Rusviet Union is...
And you're not gonna do bolstering more than 4 times to get the 4 max out, so it kind of works out actually.
That's right, but ideally you don't want to. You want to hit rock bottom with the
with the
military power at the point in time where you upgrade to unlock the 3rd cube. In bolster to make it more efficient, right?
Okay.
I honestly feel like bolstering for only 2 military power is just not worth it in this game. You really want to get up to 3.
Yeah.
And good news, Rusviet Union has access to oil, so that upgrade is possible very early on because you can shift that bolster cube down somewhere, possibly covering the metal or some other action that's more expensive. Yeah. So that's the power of the Rusviet Union. In terms of mechs, I think +1 speed is a great start because it's so easy to get mechs out, and leveraging that speed makes you spread out really fast and get your workers where you need them to be. But there's also other very useful abilities as well. I think a good second choice would be to get the moving between the factory and any village you control, because yes, the Rusviets can grab the moving across rivers, but I feel like just going straight for the jugular and grabbing the factory card early on is great.
And they'll give you a star as well.
That's right. That's right. No, the factory card doesn't give you a star.
sorry, if you have the secret objective, which like
Yeah.
I think maybe 1 in 2 cards of the secret objectives like always involve a factory.
Have a factory card of some sort. That's right. There's another one which is like have 0 factory cards and control at least 2 territories adjacent, divide and conquer. So from the factory, you can go there and then spread out.
There's quite a few factory things in this deck.
Cards. Yep, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. I think that's a good second call. The third mech you'd want to get out would be the one which helps boost your combat strength when you have at least 1 worker involved in the fight. Combat cards are undeniably powerful. The Rusviet Union starts with 2. Getting more is a little tricky because I don't really ever see any faction except maybe the Crimean Khanate taking their bolster action
to take their cards.
You'll either have to rely on unlocking the recruit that gives you more cards based on what your neighbors do if they also recruit, or filling that recruit bonus to grab more cards. But honestly, we'll talk about that a bit more when we get to the Crimean Khanate. Because grain is not easy to access for the Rusviet Union, it seems unlikely that they will dig heavily into this recruit action. Although here, in this case, it's 3 coins, so maybe you modify your strategy to focus on that. Again, coins are good. We mentioned stars are good. Coins are also good
money.
So
money is good.
So that's the Rusviet Union. You can get the factory card early. And I think the one last thing to mention is, I mentioned the Rusviet faction can do the same action multiple times. Well, with factory cards, they can really squeeze the living heck out of it because they can do this card every single turn. So if they can find an excellent card, and usually they'll be the first ones there, I think people say they can usually get to the factory within by turn 4 or turn 5 if they know exactly what they're doing. If they're not focusing on the Tosmas, if they're just focusing on the village movement. They can find an excellent card and just hammer it out to get the points they need or to finish some bottom star they need. So that's really the Rusviets are the best faction to utilize the factory cards. The other factions, not quite as much, but really depends on the situation. So that's the Rusviet Union. Any more questions you got to ask about these guys? Or
it seems straightforward for the starting position. I mean, how do you get? So after that, when you get off your island, I'm guessing you wanna get into a couple of fights. Make sure to maybe grab some of those encounters before anybody else does.
That's right. Because of their potential to have a very heavy production focus, they'll be mostly hammering this production action out, which would mean they have lower power than usual. So maybe they don't want to get in fights early on. They want to wait till they can optimize that bolster. And then because they can do the same action over and over again, they'll be like bolster. 16 power, ready to fight. That can be.
So get to the 16, get the star. Then you then go out swinging, get a couple of wins in, get the stars for those.
It really depends on your missions, but that's a totally viable strategy. Okay, guys, so that was just for the Rusviet Union.
Yeah.
We'll be back for the Nordic one next.
Yep.
See you soon.